name is Lorigill. I'm the founder of the Attachment and Trauma Treatment Center for Healing. Really honored to have my good friend Anne-Marie here with us today. Marie Lockmyer is an award-winning author, a speaker, and a grief and loss specialist. She's the founder of the Grief and Trauma Healing Network, and she's joining us from California to share some tips and strategies and techniques for us during this time. I will add, Anne-Marie also came through our trauma and attachment certification program for those of you who are viewing that are familiar with that. And I thought it would be really important for her to come and share some of her thoughts around tips and techniques or advice that may be helpful to people during this time. Marie, I'll turn things over to you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you, even if it's this way. It's just nice to see you. Well, this is just a crazy, unprecedented time, isn't it? It's unimaginable and things are changing daily. And it really is a time of tremendous grief, whether people realize it or not. And I try to tell people that that uncomfortable feeling that you're experiencing often now is actually grief. We are suffering a lot of losses. And of course, some of us realize that, but some of us don't. And if you recognize that loss, I mean, when we think of grief, we usually think of death, right? A loss of a loved one or something like that. But it can be caused by any kind of negative loss in your life. And a loss can be caused by a familiar pattern of behavior changing. And what is going on worldwide right now? Our familiar patterns of behavior are being uprooted. And so we are dealing with all these changes that we did not choose. And even sometimes changes that we choose are difficult, but these ones are totally out of our control. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just encourage people to actually recognize that you may be grieving and that there is loss. And that's really a powerful concept to understand. So it would explain why we are out of sorts, right? And I think what people are finding is that even if you think you're emotionally healthy and you're in pretty good shape, we're still out of sorts right now, you know, and we don't even recognize necessarily that we are, but the control has just been taken away from us. Our foundation has been taken away from us. We're not sure what the future is. You know, all these things can just set things off in us, as you well know, Lori. But let's go back to the losses that we're having. So yes, people are getting sick and people are dying, and these are catastrophic and terrible situations. But there's also the loss of your routine. It's the loss of the trip you had planned, the party that you had planned. And I know people are thinking, my goodness, how could you say that compared to what some of the other losses are that are going on out there? And we're not comparing. We are not comparing at all. These are horrific, but these are important too, because as we acknowledge and respond and feel these ones, it actually equips us to be healthier when other heavier losses come on board. And this is really important if you have children. So if I'm speaking to anyone who has children, this is something you can teach your children that is vital. If they know this when they're young, this is going to give them a healthy way to acknowledge their pains and hurts in life. So let's look at those losses. So for instance, if a child doesn't get the birthday party that they thought they were going to have. Maybe graduation. You know, a lot of people are missing graduations. And it's easy for us to do what? Say, well, it could be worse, right? There are people that are dying here. Or, you know, you're going to have your college graduation. Or we're going to do something else. We're going to buy you this to make you feel, but whatever it is, we can try and talk them out of it. Or just tell them to move on or get over it. And I've heard that a few times. Well, that's not a big deal. Just move on or get over it. No. Let them feel it, acknowledge it, because we don't want to stuff it. If you could just say, so let's take an example for that with the graduation. Wow, that's got to be really disappointing that you're not getting your graduation. What were you looking forward to about that? And let them talk about, I wanted to walk down the aisle. I wanted to wear my cap and gown. Yeah, let them actually run through everything that they're missing and just listen to them. That's it. Just listen to them. And then when they're done, I can see why that would be really disappointing. Yeah, and just hug them. Then we can say, so what can we do? What can we do now to make this great for you? You know, we have to reset and do something else. But you see how we're not just trying to change it, we're acknowledging it. There are people who had trips planned that didn't get to go on trips, or they were going to see family members. They didn't get to do that. It's okay to say, I'm disappointed this didn't happen. Maybe someone was about to make a major purchase and they can't now because their finances changed suddenly. So they're losing out on that. It's okay to acknowledge that we're sad. That's disappointing. You know, whatever that may be, whatever your loss is, nothing is too small. Just acknowledge it, allow yourself to feel sad and disappointed, and then have the next feeling go on. I mean, Laura, you talk about that. They're just feelings, right? Those are your neurons firing. I love it when you say that. They're just neurons firing. So feelings are not bad. And we want to be okay with that. And especially as people are cooped up in that house, right? And they might be getting on each other's nerves and that. It's okay to say, I'm losing my independence. You know, I miss being able to go to my gym. I miss being able to go for my walk, whatever it is, my social time with my girls. It's okay to say, I miss that. I'm sad. You want to have a little cry over it? Have a cry over it and talk about what you've missed. Then we try to see what can we do about it now. And attitude is very important, of course. And once we feel that sadness, then we can say, well, what does this situation allow me to do that maybe I couldn't have done if it wasn't for this situation? So a lot of people I'm talking to, I'm saying, okay, when this is all over, what could you look back and say, wow, if this whole isolation and change because of the coronavirus didn't happen, I wouldn't have been able to ... You know, what can you create that you're going to say, wow, okay, this is something I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So we don't want to ignore it. We want to feel it. We want to have compassion for other people and not judge. And there might be people in your life that you think are being way too sensitive about certain things, and because you wouldn't take it as hard, but it's tough for them. So just listen to them, hold them, and then let's go on to the next feeling and see what we can do the best in those circumstances. But we are out of sorts right now. We have a very short fuse, some of us too, you know, we're just starting to get stressed. So the more we can feel those emotions and not stuff them, it's going to be healthy and helpful to us. It's going to free us. Routine is really important right now too. If we can establish a routine to give us some order, whenever we feel like things are out of order, any way that we can take order back is going to be very helpful to us. And I think there's going to be a lot of grief when this is all over. You know, there's going to be a lot of grief with people who weren't able to be with their loved ones when they needed to be, people that weren't able to be. I was talking to a gentleman the other day who couldn't be at his grandbaby's birth. He'd been waiting for that, you know, for what, 9 months. So excited, they wouldn't let him in. So do we want to talk him out of it, or do we want to say, wow, that's a big disappointment? You know, you missed that. And what were you looking forward to about that? Talk about it and then move on. But some of these things I think a lot of us aren't going to feel until later, because right now we're just trying to get through it. So that was a lot, but just understanding that it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to grieve. And a lot of what we are doing is grieving individually, but we are also grieving as a community right now, right? This is public grief. So yeah, that's a lot, but I hope it's helpful.
Oh, so helpful. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. And I think, you know, you've touched on so many valid points, and it reminds me of, I often use the name it to tame it, right? So notice it, name it, allow it, nurture it. And I think that there's such profound power in noticing what we're feeling, allowing it to be there just as part of being human, right? We do have disappointments, hurts, fears, and feeling those feelings and knowing that they will pass is really, really critical. So thank you so much for sharing that and for joining us today. So thank you again for being here today. Thanks for sharing your insights and in your heart. And I wish you a gentle rest of your day.
Thanks, Lori.